Om Ajnanatimranyasa Ganagana Salakaya Chaksurin Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 5 and 6. These are new glasses, so I'm having a little trouble seeing these words. Maybe up close. Ashastra Vihitam Goram Tapyante Te Ye Tapo Gyanaha Damba Hankara Samyuktaha Kama Raga Balanvitaha Karshantaha Sarira Stam Bhuta Gramam Achetasa Mam Jaivanta Sarira Stam Tan Vidi Asura Nischaram Ashastra Vitam Goram Tapyante Ye Tapogyanaha Damba Ahankara Samyukta Kamaraga Balanvita Karshanta Sarirastam Bhuta Gramam Achetasa Mam Chaivanta Sarirakstam Tam Vidi Asura Nischayan Ashastra Vihitam Goram Tapyante Ye Tapogyana Dampahankara Samyukta Kamaroga Balanvita Karshanta Sarirastam Bhuta Grama Machetasa Mam Jaivanta Sarirastam Tanvidi Asura Nischaram Ashastravi Tam Goram Tapyante Ye Tapogyana Dambahamkara Samyukta Kamaroga Balanvita Karshanta Sarirastam Bhuta Grama Machetasa Mam Chaivanta Sarirastam Tam Vidi Asura Nischayam. Repeat. Other ladies? No? Okay. Now we'll start with the word for word. Ashastra. Not in the scriptures. Vihitam. Directed. Goram. Harmful to others. Tapyante. Undergo. Yea. Those who. Tapa. Austerities. Jnana, persons. Damba, with pride. Ahankara, with egoism. Samyukta, engaged. Kama, of lust. Raga, an attachment. Bala, by force. Anvitaha, impelled. Karshanta, tormenting. Sarira, or Sarirastam, situated within the body. Bhuttagramam, the combination of material elements. Achetasa, having a misled mentality. Anybody have that? Okay, good. Mam, me. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Anta, within. Sarira, stam, situated in the body. Tan, them. Vidi, understand. Asura Nischayan, demons. So listen carefully, there will be a test on these things. So if something's not in the Shastras and it's harmful to others, that's good? No. Okay, good. Just making sure you're paying attention, obviously. Translation. Those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish and who torture the material elements of the body, as well as the supersoul dwelling within, are to be known as demons. Okay, good. Not that it's good, but good that you know. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are persons who manufacture modes of austerity. Is that good? Okay, good. And penance, which are not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions. For instance, fasting for some ulterior purpose, such as to promote a purely political end. It is not mentioned in the scriptural injunctions. The scriptures recommend fasting for spiritual advancement and not for some political end or social purpose. Persons who take to such austerities are, according to Bhagavad-Gita, certainly demoniac. Their acts are against the scriptural injunctions and not beneficial for the people in general. Actually, they act out of pride, false ego, lust, and attachment for material enjoyment. By such activities, not only is the combination of material elements of the body is disturbed, but also the Supreme Personality of Godhead living within his body. Such unauthorized fasting or austerities for some political end are certainly very disturbing to others. They are not mentioned in the Vedic literature. A demoniac person may think that he can force his enemy or other parties to compel with his desire by this method. But sometimes one may die by such fasting. These acts are not approved by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he says that those who engage in them are demons. Such demonstrations are insults to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are enacted in disobedience to the Vedic scriptural injunctions. Can someone think of any instances of that? What in the stories we've been reading? Who else? Yes?
A modern instance is, for example, Srila Prabhupada criticized Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi used fasting for political ends.
And what else when we've been reading in the stories about Lord Nrsingadev and who? What kind of austerities did he do? Severe. And it was for the personality of Godhead? No. Is that the difference? Can you just manufacture some austerity? What if we punish ourselves? Have we seen some of these? Did early Christians do this? They would flog themselves? You beat yourself with a whip. This is to get rid of the sins? Is that a good... Which ones? Which kind of things should we manufacture as atonements? Nothing. Oh, okay. Just checking. But do people do them anyway? In their fertile brains, they manufacture something. So the Christians would do like this. They would flog themselves to get rid of sins. So there are others, but those are a couple of examples. Doesn't mean we hate the people involved. It just means that there's a better path to go, right? Okay. They are enacted in disobedience to the Vedic scriptural injunctions. The word achetasa is significant in this connection. Persons of normal mental condition must obey the scriptural injunctions. Those who are not in such a position neglect and disobey the scriptures and manufacture their own way of austerities and penances. Are we going to teach a class on how to manufacture your own austerities? People don't like austerities anyway, do they? One should always remember the ultimate end of the demoniac people, as described in the previous chapter. The Lord forces them to take birth in the wombs of demoniac persons. Is that good? Okay. Consequently, they will live by demoniac principles life after life without knowing their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If, however, such persons are fortunate enough to be guided by a spiritual master who can direct them to the path of Vedic wisdom, they can get out of this entanglement and ultimately achieve the supreme goal. So these persons who are demoniac, are they doing austerities?
Yes.
Are they doing penances?
Yes.
Are they taking shelter of something?
Yes.
They are. Who is there that takes shelter? Everyone takes shelter of something, right? Isn't it true?
Usually they get some boon from Brahma or Shiva or something.
Brahma doesn't get worshipped much anymore, but that's one way. Yeah, he did. But that's not recently. Recently, we don't even have any temples of Brahma except in Pushkar. Although they said in the Santa Monica Mountains there's a big figure carving that looks like it was very old and was a carving of Brahma. So they have it there. But the point is here is that everyone's taking shelter of something. And even devotees, we sometimes take shelter of other things. What other things do people take shelter of? Some things maybe, as we talked about the modes, in the different modes, goodness, passion, ignorance. What kind of shelter would be in one of those modes? What? What mode would that be in? Passion. I'm taking shelter of my false pride until it gets extinguished. What else? What else do we take shelter in? You have to think of something. Love? Lust. We quite often lust more than love, or it might be both, right? Love could be more in goodness and lust in passion. You know, at least if somebody has a wife and children, there's some lust there, but they're trying to perform a bigger function. But so it is all right to have the wife and children in business, and we take some shelter there. What else do we take shelter of? Money. I was thinking is that some people, it's funny, they said that they didn't trust the government, so they put all the money in cash. But it says on the cash, Reserve Government of India, right? So if you don't trust the government, you don't keep the money in cash that comes from the government. So what is 1,000 rupee note worth today? Zero. How about two of them? 2 zeros. 2 zeros, right? How much is 2 zeros? What about 0 times 0? Plus 0? Minus 0, and then divided by 0. What do we get? So we don't put anything in it, because at least if it's nothing, if we put nothing out, we break even. So if we take shelter, how do we have to divide this up? Just like, what would be a shelter in the mode of ignorance? What?
Sleep, laziness, indolence.
Particularly one thing people do when they get frustrated. What do they take? What do they have at the bars? And the bong lassi, what is all that? Intoxication. Does that help somebody out? No. They think it will, don't they? Yes? What do people have to do to get free from things like addiction to intoxication? What if they don't know about Krishna? They still have to find some God, and what do they have to do? You know what they tell them? What's that? What do they tell them? That if they're trying to get free of intoxication, that if they don't do this, they won't get free of it. They have to be more attached to a loving God than they are to all the people, the places, and things in our life. So we may have a house, we may have friends, we may have children, we may have so many things, but we have to make sure that this is what anartha nivriti is, that we have to be more attached to Krishna than we are to all those other things. Anartha nivriti is 60-70% detached from material things. It's like they have the seesaw, put two children on one side. If this child weighs 20 kilos and I put one here with 10 kilos, what happens? The one is way up here. So I have to put one with 50 kilos. More. We have to put more weight on the Krishna side. Then when we're more dependent on Krishna, we get through these things. Does every single relationship in marriage in this material world work? And when it doesn't work, what is the solution? Find another one? Divorce? Quite often intoxication, isn't it? I remember seeing in old movies, whenever the the boyfriend or girlfriend would split up. That night they'd be at the bar just getting, as they call it, wasted. Doesn't sound good, does it? Wasted, trashed? Does that sound like it's good? Oh, I got wasted, trashed, hammered. That's what they do. Because if we're not more dependent on Krishna, then we're going to be in trouble when difficulties come along. And who do difficulties come for? We can minimize them to some degree by not being too attached to things, by not having too many attachment, especially illicit ones. And we have to be careful. Trouble is when someone makes a mistake, they think, like my mother told me, her friend had the kilo box of chocolate candies and she was on the diet. So she ate a piece of chocolate. She said, well, I've blown the diet now, I might as well eat the whole box, right? Is that true? Let's say a person went back to drinking alcohol or they had sex with someone. Does that mean you give up and keep doing it? Right? If I bump my head on the wall, well, I've already bumped it once. I might as well keep bumping it, correct? Is it? No. If a little is bad, a lot is better. So that's what they think. People have a couple drinks, they feel miserable. So you have more, you feel better? No, it doesn't. It isn't the proper math. If one is bad, two is worse. But this is why I try to do a lot of Krishna consciousness, because my tendencies, whatever I do a lot of it. So if we apply that to the right thing, it may be okay. So this is the problem, is that the people are applying all these things to the wrong place. It is kind of like if you give me a lakh of rupees and I say, oh, thank you so much. What can I do for you now? Right? Krishna mentions this. Because this is all talking about improper worship, improper austerities, improper shelter. And the residents of Vrindavan were going to do a puja to who? Indra. And what did Krishna say to them? Well, one thing he said here, as I was looking, is he said that the Govardhan Hill supplies us with all the grass, and the cows supply us with the milk. So if one thing is giving our shelter, but we give our attention and we take shelter of something, one thing is sustaining us, but we take shelter of something else, then we're not going to get the real benefit. A man has a wife, the wife is loving him so nicely, so he goes off with some street girl. This is kind of how our mind thinks, though, isn't it? We are supposed to be loyal to Radha and Krishna, but we have so many other attachments. Krishna is saying this. If there is something that sustains us, but we take shelter of something else, how can we get this benefit? So, there are benefits, but of course some of these benefits are they're results. Benefits implies something comes good, right? Like, what is the benefit of passion? We don't necessarily call it benefit, it's a result, right? Benefit implies something good, right? Like if you do something for me, the benefit is I give you a lakh of rupees. If you hit me and I hit you back harder, you don't call that a benefit, you call that a reaction, correct? So what's the result of passion? Frustration, is that it? That's something we all want more of, right? When people are praying to say, Krishna, please increase my amount of frustration. No, they don't usually pray like this, right? And what's the result of ignorance? Madness, indolence, sleep. Which states in India have the most intoxication? I think it's Tamil Nadu, isn't it? Is it? There's more alcohol in Tamil Nadu than any other state? Goa. It's Goa. They're competing now. Any other states? They didn't used to drink so much in India, but now I see more people. We were out by the Talavan forest, and the one man is kind of trying to direct Dinabandhu's car in the traffic, and he was so drunk he just, I don't know if he looked silly, sad, or something, but it didn't look good. And it was like 11 in the morning. If you're drunk at 11 in the morning, that's a bad sign, isn't it? It isn't a good sign later on, but 11 in the morning? But the trouble is, if you take shelter of something, you usually continue doing that. If you take something and it gives you a result, you continue doing this. And this is why we have to be careful about things that Krishna explains. Like while contemplating the objects of the senses, it's no big deal, it just goes away, right? No. While contemplating the objects of the senses, what happens? Attachment. And what happens from attachment? Lust arises. And from lust? Anger. And then from anger? Bewilderment. The trouble with bewilderment is we're confused and we don't know that we're in it, right? That's the trouble with ignorance. We have it so bad we don't know we're in it. And then we fall into the material pool. So we can't manufacture our own kinds of austerities. It's funny. I was in Paris, France, and we would go out to distribute books where the people would throw food at us and throw slop water out the window. And it was freezing cold and we had no heat or electricity. And the one French boy is opening and closing the window to let in the snow air. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Set to an austerity." I said, "Isn't enough of an austerity that we have no electricity and no heat and it's middle of winter and we have to go preach to demoniac people?" And it's funny, the demoniac people, there we would go out and you would smell the different kinds of meat cooking. And it smelled awful, but you know why they cook it? Because people in the mode of ignorance are attracted to that smell. Imagine that. The thing that's rotting and it's making us sick. People are attracted to it. That's what happens when you're in that mode. You're attracted to the very thing that makes you miserable. Isn't it true? The person that wants the alcohol, when they hear that beer can crack, boy, that they become so excited. But the strange thing is, if it never brought happiness before, but that was last time, next time will be different, isn't it? So they manufacture all kinds of ways. So why are they following the wrong instructions and taking the wrong shelter? Because there is a shelter, just like Prabhupada says. The fact that there is a mirage in the desert and you see water where there isn't water, what does that mean? It means there is water somewhere. It's just not where you think it is. But the reflection comes and it looks like water, and the animals and the people chase that until they fall down dead. This is what happens when they're chasing the mirage. And that's what this material enjoyment is. It's like the carrot in front of the ass. They put the carrot in front of him, but because he's carrying it, as he keeps walking, he's thinking he's getting closer. But because it's on top of him, he's not getting any closer to the carrot. He takes, the carrot is 1/10 of a meter away, and he walks 10 meters and is still 1/10 of a meter away. How does this happen? And this false pride, we so puffed up. There's the children's stories that tell about how the people have the wrong thinking. They're trying the austerities, like the Lomari, the fox. What's the story in Hindi? Is Ek Deen Ek Burki Lomari Bagicha ke under. One day the crazy fox went into the garden, right? And he saw the angurs, the grapes. So he tries to jump for them and he can't reach them. So the fact that he can't reach them means they're not any good anyway, right? We call it they must be sour. So just because we can't get something doesn't mean it's good. And just because we can get something doesn't mean it is. If liquor becomes available, does that mean it's good? Oh, good, it's here, it's available. Can it be helpful? But people think if it's available, it must be good. And this is our conditioning by this. And the trouble is when we're forced to things without guidance, is we've already acquired a certain modes. The person who's acquired that mode of ignorance, he smells the rotting flesh, which is not only bad karma, but it's bad for the environment, and poor animals have to die for it. But yet he thinks this is something wonderful. Doesn't he? And you don't want them to know what's supposedly the most tasty kind of flesh. You know what is the most tasty kind of flesh? Do you? Which one do you think it is? Don't tell the meat eaters. It's a human flesh. That's why once a lion eats a human, they always go back to eating humans. I'm not saying if you have to eat meat, eat humans. But the idea is, would you really know? Like they say people eat chickens or something else, or they eat snakes. They say, oh, it tastes like chicken. I figure everything tastes pretty much like chicken, right? Would they know that, oh, there was one story. There was this movie in the 60s about, it was called Psycho. And in Psycho, it kept looking like the mother was killing all these people, and her form was up in the attic, and finally they saw that the mother had died, and the son was dressing up like the mother to come and kill people. And this story was made out of a story that there was this one man who was giving the smoked deer meat to all the people in the town. And strangely enough, people kept disappearing in this town. And he would give his smoked turkey meat to the people in the town, and they all thought this was the best meat they'd ever had. So finally they figured out that that the people had disappeared at his house. So they went and raided the house, and they saw that he was cutting up all kinds of people. And they said, where do you kill the deers and cut the deer meat up? And he says, I never killed a deer or cut up a deer in my life. So what does that mean? It means all these people in the town were eating human meat and thinking it was the best meat they'd tasted. So this shows that how gross it can be, is that people who eat other kinds of meat wouldn't shy away from human meat if it was fed to them, if they didn't know about it. So, of course, we know that this is a mode of ignorance, and this is one of the worst things to do, especially because it's involved in killing. We were talking yesterday about lust, right? And lust may be a little harder to control, but once we get the idea about meat, like I said, the first time I chanted Hare Krishna with some people in 1967, a friend of mine was shooting at animals, and he squished the dove with a rock. And I said, that's a cruel thing to do. He said, well, you eat meat, don't you? I said, yes, we all do, don't we? I said, except some people in India. And he said, well, how many animals do they have to kill for you to eat meat? I said, probably a lot. He said, so does it make me any worse to kill one more bird than for you to eat all those animals? I said, you're right, I'll never eat it again. And I never wanted to eat it again. Although in 1968 in Mexico City, I did eat an egg. This was before I'd met the devotees. But I got so sick from that, I never ate that again. But that was easy to put that behind us. Whereas the lust may not be as easy. But the trouble is with this, when we don't have the scriptural injunctions, when we don't know where we're going, it's very difficult to get there, isn't it? We don't have a clear destination. How are we going to get there? And we're running around using the information from the modes we've acquired. Now, if the modes you've acquired are goodness, you may be inclined to at least do some good things. You may find devotees, but you may be lost in philanthropic activities and feeding people and still not find the ultimate spiritual truth. It gets worse. What if the main mode you'd acquired is passion? Now your goal is to find money and sex. You're chanting instead of Hare Krishna, money, power, sex, money, power, sex, money, power, sex, right? They get the money, then they get the power, then they get the different women, right? Isn't that how it is? If someone has money, so many women will come, right? Even though they may fool these ones. You know that Putana was a demon dressed up like a beautiful woman, but she isn't the only one. There are plenty of demons who are dressed up like beautiful women, out looking for those men with the money, right? There's the gold diggers, they call them in America. They're looking for this. And if the modes one is acquired are the modes of ignorance, now what is he doing? He is finding ways and means to get intoxication. I'll get a job, I'll steal from someone, I'll borrow money, I'll come up with an idea that someone will lend me money or give me money, and I'll use all of that on intoxication. So when we're wandering around, following the modes of nature, then we're going to be lost as to about what direction to follow. Even when we get to scripture, the Vedic scriptures are so vast. And you look at scriptures like Christian scripture, it's translated. People seem to forget that. I was talking with a Greek woman, and I was saying that in the Bible it says Jesus gave the people bromide, and some of them translate this to mean meat. And she says, no, I'm Greek. Bromide means food. It doesn't mean meat. But in the Christian Bible, they translate it as meat. It'd be like if we translated the verse where Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam, that this means to give me meat. But since we use the original Sanskrit, it would be hard to make this mistake because people know that none of those words, patram, pushpam, or poyam, mean meat. But if I just took the Sanskrit out, I could use anything I wanted. Like Rick Perry, the governor of Texas, said, if English is good enough for Jesus, it should be good enough for the Mexicans. Of course, Jesus didn't speak English. So these people are wandering around with maybe some idea of Scripture, but they have an improper idea of Scripture, including what language it was in, what things were taken out, what things were mistranslated. So even then, it's a difficult thing to do. But the answer to this is given in the last line of this purport. Shall we read that again? Here it says, if, however, such persons are fortunate enough to be guided by a spiritual master who can direct them to the path of Vedic wisdom, they can get out of this entanglement and ultimately achieve the supreme goal. You know, this is one of the things people do, like people make improper investments, people make improper legal and medical decisions, and people make improper spiritual decisions because they don't have the proper person to guide them. Just like if you're going to learn Mridanga, first you get someone who can teach you, right? If you're going to go to court, you get a lawyer. If you need medical attention, you find your own doctor. If you need financial things, you find someone who can advise you to do proper investments, not just to put it in Forex trading because someone told you it might make money, emphasis on might. You find someone who can guide you in all of these matters. And of course, even more true in spiritual matters. Then of course too, like people get all confused. They say, well, their doctor said they should do this, and someone else's doctor said that. No, you have your own doctor, you follow what that doctor said. Even the same in spiritual life. Some spiritual masters may teach somebody something a little different, but we follow our own. It's just like if you are enrolled in one college, but you attend classes in another, you're going to miss the ultimate goal. Like Krishna was saying to the residents of Vrindavan, if you're getting your sustained one place, but you take your shelter somewhere else, you're not going to achieve the ultimate goal. So even though we don't find fault, it's funny because someone was saying to me that his wife was confused because Prabhupada told the women that they should chant Gayatri, and Narayan Maharaj told the women that they shouldn't get Gayatri. Now I think he gave women Gayatri later on, but then I said, well, who is she initiated by? So, well, she's initiated by Prabhupada. Well, then obviously you follow the one you're initiated by. You know, if you have a doctor, you don't tell your doctor, well, somebody else told me that their doctor said, what's your doctor going to say to you? You have your own doctor, and I know your condition. Say you get prescription for your disease The doctor has checked you out. And you go to the pharmacy. And someone else says, oh no, my doctor told me that I should take a different medicine. Then you immediately give up your medicine and take theirs, correct? Is it? No. You follow your own proper doctor. So, we have it a little easier than the Christians. Did Jesus write down the Bible? He spoke it in a dictaphone? How long later was it written down? Well, how long? Isn't it at least a couple 100 years? 100 years or more? It's more than 100, right? It isn't at the time, right? So what? The Old Testament, a long time. Well, we're talking about Jesus' teachings. Nobody knows, but it's a long time later, right? So what?
Many theories.
Generally, what do they say? 200, yeah, 200. So that's a little longer than we have. They didn't use a dictaphone. So with Prabhupada's Gita here, did we have to translate it? Or did Prabhupada already translate it? It's already there for us, right? And in this case, we can say true. If English was good enough for Prabhupada, it could be good enough for us. But of course, we use the original Sanskrit. So, they say it's 200 years. Then 300 years, Constantine got together and he decided that he would take the things out he didn't like, and they put the books on the table, and they said if God doesn't like the changes, he'll kick the books off, right? So he didn't kick the books off. Therefore, God must have accepted the changes? Is this kind of a fallacy? If you give me your money and you put it here, and if God doesn't knock it off the table, that means God wants me to have your money. Correct? Is that correct? Because if God didn't want me to have your money, he would knock it off the table. So these are what we call the speculations, is we have to follow what the spiritual master is always saying. Now, is it easy for us to access Prabhupada's instructions? We're reading from one of them here. Did he give us a few things? How many pages of books did he translate? Thousands. There's probably 750 in the Krishna book, over 1,000 in the Gita. There's through the 10th canto, there's probably 11,000 there. Chaitanya Charitamrita, 7,200. So we're up to about 20,000 pages there, not mentioning other books he did. And a few lectures, we can actually hear what Prabhupada actually said in those lectures. And it's told in the beginning, given in Ahmedabad, July 12th, 1972. It's not narrowed down somewhere between 100 and 300 years. Say, this lecture was given somewhere between 100 and 300 years ago. Would that make people think about it? So we should be thankful that we have some clear-cut directions. Because this is one of the things that we do with people, that when we're preaching to people, we find the 4 kinds of people who don't surrender and the 4 kinds that do. Now, if everybody's just doing service, why does it matter what the 4 kinds are? Because that way we know what message to give to them. If somebody's in distress, we will talk to them differently than to someone who's in search of knowledge of the absolute truth. But generally, the difference between which people we talk to and which people we don't, we find that the Madhyamadikari, he worships God, he makes friends with devotees, and he helps the innocent, meaning people who are capable of taking some direction. If they can't take some direction, and you give them a little. First direction is something like, take this book and read it, then come visit me at the temple. Then when they do that, okay, come back next week. Ultimate directions, after a time, a person agrees not to eat meat, fish, and eggs, not to take intoxication, not to have illicit sex or gambling, and to chant 16 rounds. But in the beginning, we give them simple directions. Come back to the temple next week, eat the prasadam, come and chant 1 round with us in Prabhupada's Samadhi. Because then we see if they can take some direction. If they can't take some direction, then we better leave them and go on to somebody else. But the main person we should be interested in taking direction is ourself. And we see that if we pray to Krishna, he will help us read the scriptures in a way that we can understand. He will help us become detached from these things that cause us so much pain. We always talk about suffering from these conditions, right? You know, you go off and engage in material life, you get a ring, but you find out later that it's a suffer ring. And you know, they talk about this. They talk about people who are taking intoxication. You know how they describe them? People who are suffering from the influence of intoxication, don't they? They don't say people who are enjoying it so much, they just need to stop enjoying it so much. Do they talk like this? No. People who are suffering from the result. So when we see that we're suffering from something, we should be willing to take direction. Because otherwise, what are we going to do? Take direction from the modes that we've acquired? Where will that get us? We keep doing the same thing, we'll get the same result. More ignorance brings more what? Ignorance. What does more passion bring? More passion, even sometimes ignorance. Because the passion is so frustrating, you'd have to take intoxication just to relieve yourself from the frustration. And it seems to work just for a while, like throwing gasoline in the fire. It goes down, but then when it comes back, it really bursts back. So the whole point of this, it works out next week that I get to lecture on some different austerities, is I get to talk about the austerities of speech. Here's a homework assignment. I want everyone to know by I don't know if it's next Wednesday because we're going to start the Bhagavad-Gita, but one of these Wednesdays I get to lecture about the austerities of speech. So the homework assignment is to find out what the austerities of speech are. They're in this chapter. It should be easy to find. It's only a few verses more, but I don't know if it's next Wednesday or 2 Wednesdays. How many days till Prabhupada's disappearance? 12? Is it 12 days? 12 days more, right? So maybe 2 days after that. But I will get to lecture on these austerities of speech. Because if we're doing some austerity, we don't make up something. Because the austerities that Krishna gives are something very practical and they're beneficial. You know, we don't do the austerities like people used to lay on the nail of beds in India. Or like I said, he was opening the windows and shutting them to let in the cold air, or the Christians would flog themselves. We do austerities that are not mentioned to cause yourself pain. In South India, Tamil Nadu, the Kavadi, they stick the pins in themselves, right? And they carry around the things, and it isn't really recommended in Scripture to do this kind of harsh austerity on the body. We don't have to make the body suffer. What we have to do is do austerities, meaning that they're things that the austerity is to take the mind away from the matter and apply it to Krishna. And the austerities that help us do that are mentioned in the next couple of chapters here. So that is why Krishna is mentioning to us the austerities that we don't make up, because he's going to talk about austerities in the mode of passion, ignorance, and goodness, and what austerities are beneficial. What is austerities of speech? What is austerity of body? What is the austerity of mind? What are penances? What are proper sacrifices? What are charity? When the person wants the bottle of wine, you give them. That's charity, right? But it's not proper charity. It's ignorance. It's like giving a gun to someone who's depressed, right? Right? Or like a snake helps baby birds back to the nest, right? This is the kind of helpfulness. This is not real helpfulness. So we have to understand Shastra from the point of the spiritual master. This is what Lord Chaitanya and Prabhupada are showing us by bringing people from the Western world. Some people think, well, I was born in India, so I automatically know this. Just like they were born in India, so they think they automatically know cricket. But let's just say I'm not born in India. Just let's pretend I'm not born in India. And I come to India. And I come to study cricket under Sachin Tendulkar. And he spends many hours a day training me. Am I going to be better than 99% of the Indians at cricket? Am I? Yes. What do you mean, no? Of course I am. Because I'm trained by the master of the sport, right? If it's because other people were just born in here, but I go to someone who actually knows how to play it, right? So, or if I had gone to learn the sitar from Ravi Shankar, would I be better than people who just think they're born in India, but don't even know how many strings are on one? So the same way to that, Prabhupada, is that to spiritual life. Krishna mentions this earlier. Tat vidi tat praniprashnena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gyanam gyanani vas tattva darshanaha. That one should approach the self-realized spiritual master and inquire submissively from him. The self-realized spiritual master can impart knowledge to you because he has seen the truth. So now that we have found a spiritual master who has seen the truth, think that we get benefit from following his direction, how to do austerities, how to practice spiritual life, especially since he's backing it up with the information given by Krishna. How much more beneficial will this be than acting under the whims and the impulses of the modes that we may have acquired, even if they are the mode of goodness? Still, how much better will we do? So are there any questions or comments on these points? No questions? Where's the microphone? Yes. She wants to pass the microphone because then the people in Radio Land hear it. Where's the microphone? Hand it to Kavi Chandra Swami. It's right there. No, it's over there, next to you, Kavi Chandra Swami. Huh.
Because you mentioned that meat in the Bible.
Yes.
And at the time, meat meant food, like we say sweet meats.
Yeah.
Just mean eating.
Yeah.
So now meat means flesh. Basically, everybody hears the word meat and means flesh. I was in Israel and I looked up and we had on my computer the Bible and meat, and they looked in the same verse in the Hebrew. It never had said they went to eat, they had bread, they
Yeah.
had fruit, they had lunch, they had breakfast, they had dinner.
Yeah.
You know, never said they had flesh. But the Bible, they'll put it in bold letters, meat, every time. You know, they give not only just the word, you know. So that's why people say the Bible says you have to eat meat, you know.
Because Jesus spoke it in English, right?
Huh?
Jesus spoke it in English, right? That's what they think. But it doesn't say that in the original. That's why we
No,
keep...
it's-
Yeah, obviously that's like Rick Perry said, well, if English was good enough for Jesus, then it was good enough for the Mexicans. But Jesus didn't speak it in English. The original writing is more correct. That's why we keep the original Sanskrit alive, so that we don't translate Patram Pushpam Flows and say,
The thing with the Gita and the Bhagavad-Gita, there's absolutely no controversy about the original.
yeah,
But all the other scriptures that they so-called, nobody knows for sure. It's
Yes.
original.
and then it's changed anyway. Well, it's not English, we know that.
Yeah.
It wasn't written English originally. If you Google vegetarianism in the Bible, it's like 55 different things come up about it, even with them changing that part.
They purposely took out whatever they could find.
Oh.
Constantine.
And there's still 53 in
Whatever
there.
was about vegetarian or reincarnation. They
Yeah.
missed some, but
Well, God didn't kick the book off the table, so it must be correct. How do you take...
Then some people accuse that that's what they've done, but anybody can go through the editing of Prabhupada books. Nobody can find any changes in that way. It's just grammatical changes.
Yes.
Nobody ever found like a philosophical difference.
Well, especially because he gave it to us in English. That one's that, the Christians translated it, the Catholics translated it from from Aramaic and Greek into Latin, and then the Protestants just took the Latin and retranslated it. So it's already a double translation.
We have the original. It's been somehow carefully preserved.
Yes.
The Gita and the Bhagavad-Gita. Puranas and Mahabharata, they say maybe, different things come from it. The Gita and the Bhagavad-Gita, they always knew this is really important. We're changing.
Yes. But Christians who read the Greek may not have that going on. Is that true? Just like the one person said, no, bromide means food, it doesn't mean meat.
That's why we don't argue from there.
We don't argue with
We
them.
argue from the Gita.
No, that is better. It's better not to try to enter into theirs because it's better to argue from our own only. But we're lucky to have clear-cut directions and know what century it was actually in and what state, and to have the, it comes in different forms and that you can hear Prabhupada lectures. Some people even still have cassette tapes of it. Any other question or comment? Yes? Bring it over to here. Thank you for your contribution, Kavi Chandra Swami.
Just like how we Indians, we and in our family, our parents, they used to chant and do everything, but they were not that much qualified that we shouldn't eat meat or intoxication or these things. So whatever our parampara, just like our grandfathers and our father and this one, they were doing everything, but they were not putting their mind, applying their mind that we shouldn't eat this one or this one. Or sometime, okay, Monday we have fasting, so we do fasting, and then we should do fasting. They do fasting, but the other days they want to eat whatever they want to eat, they allow. And this is just like when some now 25th November, they say meatless day. Whole year they eat meat, and only on 25th November they say today is a meatless day. Because they celebrate meatless day like that. So these things are going on in so many Indian families, and everything that is going on. But during auspicious day, they want to do fasting, just like
Well, make every day auspicious.
they think it is auspicious, so we should fast and we should not take this.
Then every day should be auspicious.
Every day is not
That's
auspicious.
why. That's why I don't need to check the calendar of which is a meatless day, because if I don't eat it, I don't. That's what Magrari the hunter said when Narada Muni told him, why are you half killing these animals? He says, well, my father did. I've always done it this way. My father always did it this way, and his father always did it that way. It's just like if you rob the bank in Mathura. The police come, they say, hey, what are you doing? I say, well, this is how I've always made my living. My father used to rob the banks, and my grandfather used to rob the banks. So they let you go, right? Do they? No. They take you to the hotel called Tihar, right? The prison, Tihar, right? You'll get arrested. It doesn't matter whether your family members used to do it. And this is why we have to keep our mind open. This is why we try to follow Shastra and Guru, not just what family members got from it. It's very clear that what Krishna wants. And it's funny, less people are vegetarian now in India than they used to be. The states that hold on the best are Gujarat and Rajasthan. But the South, a lot more people eat meat than used to. It used to be big vegetarian, but it's gone to... And you go to Mathura, many people will eat it there. And it's funny, the Indian people come to America. My granddaughter had there was at the apartment complex, they say there was a big party where they cooked things. And her husband's family, part of them are Seventh-day Adventists, so they're all vegetarians. And they made like 8 vegetarian dishes, and my granddaughter made 4 vegetarian dishes. And somebody else put some meat preparations on one table. And these people who, I guess they had lived in Aligarh, and they said they'd studied Sanskrit in Mathura, and they went, and the only thing they ate was the meat. It's one thing if there's nothing else, or they had a little meat with it, but there was so many vegetarian dishes, and and the only thing they ate was the meat. So it's kind of a shock that we're thinking the Indians will come and teach the Americans how to become vegetarians. They can try to, right? Yes?
There's a good lesson from that. It's
Give-
like, when you're growing up, they say, you don't eat meat, Brahmins don't eat meat. And they say, why not? Because they don't ask many questions.
Yeah.
Don't do that. So when they get to America and they think, oh, now I can do it. No one ever told them why.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Problem. Parents, don't ask them any questions. They don't know why either. They just do it because
No.
everybody does.
Because everyone else has done
We
it.
should learn also, take time to explain to people.
Yes. Well, if they do it just as a cultural reason, it's like cricket is Indian culture and baseball is American culture. But it's just a cultural thing, so it's no big deal if I tell people I gave up baseball and you tell people you gave up cricket. So if they think of not eating meat kind of like a cultural thing, oh yeah, that's something they do in the village in India, but as a cultural thing, rather than a spiritual thing and a nonviolent thing, let alone that there's health issues and ecological issues, that all of these things come along with it if they have it backed up by philosophy. And this is why Prabhupada spends so much time translating books and have us distribute this knowledge so people will have knowledge of why to do it. Because if it's done out of knowledge, then it doesn't matter where you are. Right? You don't say, when you see it has value, you're not concerned. Your culture is Indian culture, right? But if I give you a couple $100 bills, will you reject it because that's American culture? Will you? No, because it has value. If it has value, it doesn't matter which culture it is. That's why we take up Krishna consciousness. It's a different culture than ours, but it has value. And they have to be taught what the value is. Because if they just say, well, we don't do that, we're Brahmins, or they didn't do it, or we did do it. Just because we did do something or didn't do it, but don't know why. So we need to have the proper understanding, and we need to teach this to others, all the benefits of it. So that's why we're spending the time educating people with the spiritual knowledge. Yes. Yes. Yeah, you make them want to. You know how long you have. Yeah, you don't. You know how long. You know when you don't have to chant anymore. When you want to chant, then you don't feel like you have to chant anymore. If you want to chant, do you wake up thinking, oh, I have to chant 16 rounds? No, I think I want to. I don't think, oh, I have to chant today? I think, oh, I better chant to get the benefit from this and to do my service to Krishna. I think, oh, no, I have to do that again today? I don't think that. So when you want to, you don't feel like you have to. Even though you do, you don't feel. So how long do you have to chant? Until you want to. And then you don't feel like you have to anymore. And with the proper education, like I have 2 children, they're 39 and 42, and one granddaughter that's 26, and a great-granddaughter that's 8 months old, and none of them have ever eaten any meat. Didn't want to, because they understand the spiritual value and the idea of eating some poor animal's body. You grab some poor animal. I saw this bull out here walking slow, and I love, why going so slow? And he looked at me, and I guess he'd been hit by a car, and his leg was hurting. And I think people take the animals, they tear them apart, and they eat them. They don't eat the dog, because in America the dog is sacred. But we need to base these things on knowledge and follow the instructions of the spiritual master, and we have to know where to find them, in the books, in the tapes, and from other devotees. Any other question? Yes? Pass the microphone, because people are in outer space. I think it's only on this planet though, right? Hare Krishna.
About 5 years in
Where are you from?
I'm from Croatia, but I live in Hamburg, in Germany.
Oh.
There, we don't have, like, we started before to do morning programs, but then we stopped, and I tried to do it, but I'm often alone, and it's maybe once in 2 weeks.
Yes.
I'm very much attached to samskaras from previous life. I mean, before I met devotees, and I don't have too much taste in holding and reading, and maybe, I mean, sometimes I get depressed because I sing alone on the program, or I try to look at...
sometimes we're alone in places and we have to just read and chant by ourselves. But if we're attached to chanting rounds and we like to read books, we may not have a big rip-roaring kirtan or an artik with deities if we're off by ourselves somewhere traveling, but we can do our 16 rounds and we can do reading. And then there must be a Sunday program in Hamburg, right?
Yeah.
With a name like Hamburg, you don't think it's a huge amount of vegetarians though, right? Or they get some there now. Germany has some vegetarians now, don't they?
Yeah.
It's funny, the country, Archer Daniels Midland, they make lots of grain things, and their main business is grain business and vegetable oils. They make like 8 billion a year of vegetable oils. They have one called the Harvest Burger, and they brag that they sell a lot of Harvest Burgers in a big meat-eating country like Germany. So it's like a point of them that we can sell grain burgers in a meat-eating country. But you must have some, and then Sunday make the program nice so that people will come and be friends with people, have them come by once in a while. How many brahmacharis in Hamburg?
We don't have a brahmachari ashram. I mean, I have devotees who are senior to me, who are like more grihastas, but I see them as my brahmachari.
How many, are there other brahmacharis though?
Not actually not.
No, wow. He is the brahmachari ashram in Hamburg, Germany. Yes. It must be.
Maybe you can give me advice how to get attached to chanting when I'm alone.
Hearing. The more you hear it, the more it's relishable. And from whenever and wherever the mind wanders, you pull it back under the control of the self. Pull the mind back. And then it becomes more relishable. And have a picture of Radha and Krishna, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, and chant to the pictures. And ask for the chance to have your mind concentrated. And ask Krishna to remove the defects that make your mind wander to other things. Like that. Well, it's almost time for Artik and Dhammadarsikam. Something more? All right. Hare Krishna. So your family becomes vegetarian now? You get them to become vegetarian now? Yes? They're vegetarian now?
Not still.
Still? Maybe they can have one meatless day a week like the Catholics do. The Catholics don't eat meat on Fridays. Did you know that? They just don't eat meat on any day that ends in a Y. Aren't they inspired by you to give up meat? Aren't they inspired by you to give up meat? What? So many people in the world are becoming vegetarians and trying to be healthy. Say that, but he does say it. But many people in India are vegetarians. Yes.
When we are in the different modes, like lower modes, ignorance and passion,
Yeah.
we are conditioned to think in a certain way.
Yes.
Just like a drunkard.
Yeah.
He doesn't think that drinking is a bad.
No.
Even though he suffers separately, but he doesn't feel it that way. And he thinks that, okay, I'm suffering this time, but the next bottle of wine will give me pleasure.
Yeah.
Or next week, or
it
this time
doesn't work.
this time I didn't endeavor nicely, but next time it will give me more pressure. So we are conditioned to think in a certain way.
They call that insanity, to do the same thing, but you expect a different result, right? It's like you hit your head on this, next time it won't hurt, right? So that's the insanity. How can it be different next time? If you do the same thing, won't it bring the same result?
And we can't even instruct the people. Like, I mean, to take up the instruction, you should have a humility. They have the huge false ego. They can't.
Sometimes, like people who are suffering with alcohol abuse, sometimes they have to suffer so badly that they have to seek some shelter. Sometimes it has to get worse before it can get better. Sometimes you just have to let them go to such a place that they actually need help, you know. Then they come back crying. Yes? Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Sometimes it has to wait until it's so bad that it's obvious.
If they don't take up the instructions, but if they become
Yeah, if they take the instruction and do it easy, but sometimes they have to suffer enough that they say, "Oh my God, this has caused me so much suffering. I really need a way out of this."
But whenever they are suffering, they again take up the shelter of the alcohol, because they are under the ignorance. So when that chain will end up,
It's called a merry-go-round. It just keeps going round and round and round, a vicious cycle. And to get off that merry-go-round. But there's Krishna consciousness. They have in India, they have Alcoholics Anonymous for people. There's other people who give up drinking besides us. Other religious groups, Alcoholics Anonymous, different people there. People can get free from it. It is possible.
I'm just taking there as an example. Basically, I'm talking about the lower modes, how to
But they have to have a desire.